I'm Eva and I'm 32 years old. For most of my life, I believed that being a good daughter meant giving until there was nothing left. My mother taught me that love was sacrifice, that family meant sharing everything I had, even when no one shared back. I worked double shifts while my younger sister got the bigger bedroom. I fixed her mistakes while my parents called it character building. I smiled through every loss and called it fairness. And then came my wedding day, the day I thought would finally be about me. I was laughing, holding my bouquet, surrounded by music and light, and for one fragile moment, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this day would finally feel fair. Until my mother leaned in during the reception. Her smile was perfect for the cameras, her voice sugar-sweet. "We're passing the car his parents gave you over to your sister."
Just like that.
Casual, rehearsed, like she was rearranging napkins. My sister Danielle laughed beside her, sequins flashing under the lights. "Relax," she said. "It's just a car." But it wasn't just a car. It was every time I'd been told to give up, to be understanding, to stay quiet. It was every piece of myself I'd traded for their approval, now wrapped in a bow for someone else. The guests didn't catch it, but my stomach did. That drop, cold and final. My groom, Evan, didn't move. His smile didn't fade, but his eyes changed.
Calm.
Calculating. Like he'd been waiting for this. And that look changed everything. "Before we start, have you ever trusted someone so much, only to realize they were just taking from you?" Sometimes, the deepest betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the people we love the most. If you've ever felt that kind of silence after being hurt, you'll understand the story. Subscribe, and let's walk through these truths together, one story at a time. People say weddings reveal who really loves you. Mine revealed who never did. Because what my mother didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been preparing for this moment for weeks. I wasn't the same girl who apologized for existing anymore. I had learned to protect myself. Legally. Quietly. Completely. I'd spent my whole life giving everything away. But that day, for the first time, I took something back. And when she tried to take what was mine in front of everyone I loved, I was ready. What happened next didn't just end the party. It ended 29 years of pretending. But the car was just the beginning. What I was about to discover would unravel every lie my family ever told me and force me to choose between keeping the peace or finally keeping myself. I grew up in a house where fairness was a story told at dinner, never lived in the kitchen. My mother, Grace, loved order, the kind that kept her looking perfect and kept me quiet. She had this way of smiling that made you feel like you were always one mistake away from disappointing her. My father, Richard, believed silence fixed things. He drifted through rooms like furniture, present, but never really there. Whenever conflict rose, he'd vanish into his newspaper or the garage. And Danielle, my little sister, was the delicate one. The world bent for her, and I was the hinge that made it move. When we were kids, she got the bigger room because she was afraid of the dark. I was 8. She was 6. I slept in a room the size of a closet and told myself it was fine. When she crashed her first car at 17, Mom blamed the rain. "These things happen," she said, stroking Danielle's hair while she cried. Dad paid for the repairs without a word. I worked double shifts at a coffee shop to buy mine. Mom called it good character building. I was 19. Danielle was the reason. I was the resource. That pattern raised me, someone always taking, someone always explaining. By the time I turned 25, I had learned that love in my family meant losing quietly. I fixed Danielle's resumes. I lent her dresses she'd returned stained, or not at all. I made apologies on her behalf when she skipped family dinners or forgot birthdays. And every time my mother would smile and say, "You're such a good sister, Eva. So generous." Generous. That word became a cage. Because generosity implies choice, and I never had one. If I said no, I was selfish. If I hesitated, I was cold. If I asked for anything back, I was petty.
So I stopped asking.
I stopped expecting. I became the daughter who gave and gave until there was nothing left to recognize. By 29, I had built a life outside their script. I was an interior designer, careful, precise, the kind of woman who paid her own bills and didn't borrow dresses. I had my own apartment, my own car, my own life, and I thought I had escaped. But toxic families don't let you go that easily. They just wait, quietly, for the next opportunity to pull you back in. I thought distance would protect me. I thought independence meant freedom. But then I met Evan, and his family showed me something I'd never seen before, what love actually looked like when it wasn't wrapped in obligation. And that's when everything my mother had built started to crack. Meeting Evan felt like stepping into sunlight that didn't burn. He was calm in a way I didn't know men could be, steady, present, grounded without needing to control the room. We met at a design expo, where I was presenting a project. He was there consulting for a construction firm. He asked questions that actually listened to the answers. That alone felt revolutionary. But it wasn't just Evan. It was his family. His parents, Helen and Tom, weren't rich. They lived in a modest house with a garden Helen tended herself and a kitchen that always smelled like something baking. They were generous in the way that costs nothing, listening, trusting, handing you space to exist without apology. The first time I had dinner at their house, Helen asked me about my work. Not as small talk. She asked follow-up questions. She remembered details from previous conversations. Tom told stories about Evan as a kid, not to embarrass him, but to include me, to weave me into their history, like I already belonged there. No one interrupted. No one corrected. No one made me feel like I had to earn my place at the table. I remember sitting there, fork halfway to my mouth, thinking, is this what family is supposed to feel like? When Evan and I got engaged, his parents threw us a small rehearsal dinner 3 nights before the wedding. Nothing extravagant, just close family, string lights in the backyard, and Helen's famous lemon cake. Near the end of the night, Tom stood up and handed me a small silver key inside an envelope. "You two built this together," he said, voice warm. "Here's something to help you move forward." Inside was the title to a car. Used, clean, reliable, titled in my name. It wasn't about the metal. It wasn't even about the value. It was about what it meant. Trust, partnership, belief. The kind of gift you protect. I teared up. Evan squeezed my hand. Helen smiled like she'd been waiting for that moment for months. And across the table, I caught my mother's expression.
Tight.
Polite. Already calculating. She smiled at Evan's parents and said, "How thoughtful." But her eyes flicked to Danielle like a reflex. I should have recognized it for what it was, an early warning. My mother didn't like being out generous. She didn't like another family claiming space in my life that she believed belonged to her. And she especially didn't like that I now had something she couldn't control. That night, driving home with Evan, I felt it. A quiet dread settling in my chest. "Your mom seemed tense," Evan said carefully. "She always is," I replied. But I knew it was more than that. I knew that look. My mother was already planning something. I tried to shake the feeling. I told myself I was being paranoid. But 2 weeks later, on the morning of my wedding, my mother would prove that I wasn't paranoid at all. I was just finally paying attention. The morning of the wedding, I woke up to the sound of my mother's voice in the hallway. She'd arrived early, of course. Grace never missed an opportunity to orchestrate. I could hear her directing the florist, adjusting timelines, using that tone that made every request sound like a command. By the time she entered the bridal suite, she was already dressed, cream silk, pearls, hair sprayed into submission. She looked less like the mother of the bride and more like a queen arriving at her own coronation. "There's my bride," she said, smiling wide for the photographer trailing behind her. She fussed over my hair, smoothing invisible flyaways, adjusting my veil with hands that felt more like corrections than comfort. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," she said. But her eyes didn't soften. They scanned me, assessing, calculating. I sat still, letting her perform. "You've always been so giving, Eva," she continued, her voice dipping into something wistful. "Don't lose that." Her perfume filled the air, sweet, heavy, impossible to breathe through. I smiled back, pretending not to understand the message behind the compliment. But I did. Don't lose that. Translation: don't stop giving. Don't start keeping anything for yourself. She wasn't celebrating me. She was reminding me of my role. Danielle wandered in a few minutes later, already complaining about her dress, her makeup, the weather. Mom immediately shifted her attention, soothing her, fixing her lipstick, telling her how stunning she looked. I watched them in the mirror. The way my mother's hands moved gently over Danielle's shoulders, the way she laughed at her jokes, the way she made space for her in every conversation. And I realized something I'd known my whole life but never said out loud. She doesn't see me. She sees what I can give her. "Eva," Mom said, snapping me back. "Stop daydreaming. We're on a schedule." I nodded, obedient as always. But something inside me had already shifted. Because 2 weeks earlier, Evan and I had a conversation that changed everything. We were sitting on the couch, eating takeout, talking about wedding logistics. Somehow, the conversation turned to my family. "Your mom's been weird about the car," Evan said carefully. "She's weird about everything I have," I replied. "You think she'll try something?" I paused, fork halfway to my mouth.
Yeah.
"I do." Evan set down his food. "Then let's make sure she can't." That's when he told me about a coworker, a woman who'd gone through something similar. She'd worked with a paralegal to protect her assets before her wedding. "It's called a notarized declaration," Evan explained. "It basically states that gifts given to you can't be transferred or sold without your consent." I stared at him. "You really think we need to do that?" He looked at me, steady, sure. "I think you've been giving your whole life, Eva. And I think it's time someone protected you." 2 days later, I sat in a small office with a paralegal named Jessica. She was kind, efficient, no nonsense. "You're not being paranoid," she said as I signed the document in blue ink. "You're being prepared." The paper was notarized, stamped, legal. And I walked out of that office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. I tucked that envelope into my dresser and tried to forget about it. I wanted to believe I wouldn't need it. I wanted to believe my mother wouldn't actually take something from me, not on my wedding day. But deep down, I knew better. So when she walked into that reception with that smile, I knew the trap was already set. The envelope sat in my clutch the entire ceremony. I felt its weight against my ribs as I walked down the aisle. I felt it when Evan slipped the ring onto my finger. I felt it when we kissed, and the room erupted in applause. It was a reminder, a boundary, a line drawn in ink that no one could see yet. Evan knew it was there. Before we left for the venue, he'd squeezed my hand. "You have it?" "I do." "Good," he said. "Let's hope we don't need it." But we both knew hope wasn't a strategy. Not with my family. The reception started beautifully. The room glowed with fairy lights draped across the ceiling. The band played something soft and romantic. Guests laughed, clinked glasses, danced. For a brief, dangerous moment, I let myself believe it might all be okay. Evan's hand rested on my back as we swayed through our first dance. His parents watched from their table, smiling like they'd just witnessed something sacred. Across the room, my parents sat apart. Mom's smile was frozen in place. Dad stared at his phone. Danielle scrolled through Instagram, barely watching. I should have known then the disinterest was a cover. The calm before the performance. After the first dance, Evan and I moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations, hugging relatives, posing for photos we'd never look at. That's when I saw her. My mother, cutting through the crowd like she owned the air around her. Her pageant smile already set, perfume trailing behind her like a warning. She stopped beside us, just loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. "We're passing the car his parents gave you over to your sister." The room didn't stop. The band kept playing.
Guests kept laughing.
But everything inside me went silent. Danielle appeared beside her, glowing under the lights, sequins throwing shards of brightness across her grin. "Relax," she said. "It's just a car." It wasn't about the car. It was about the pattern, the script, the role I'd been playing my entire life. I looked at my mother's face, composed, benevolent, so sure she was right. She tilted her head, waiting for me to perform gratitude. "You and Evan can manage with one," she added. "You've always been so practical." A guest snapped a photo. In it, no one would see the way her fingers tightened on my arm. No one would hear the entitlement in her voice. I didn't respond. Evan's thumb brushed the inside of my wrist, a small question. "Are you okay?" I breathed in frosting and glass and the old, familiar taste of obedience. My father drifted over, drawn by the change in tone. "What's going on?" "Nothing serious," Mom answered quickly. "Just helping Danielle out. She's had awful luck with cars." Danielle laughed, soft and rehearsed. "It's fine, Mom. She doesn't mind sharing."
Sharing.
The word landed like a bruise. I thought about the nights I'd stayed up fixing Danielle's resume. The dress she'd borrowed and lost. The endless apologies I'd made on her behalf. All those small surrenders dressed as love. I smiled then, small, calm, dangerous. "You're right," I said. "I don't mind sharing." My mother relaxed, mistaking surrender for peace. Evan didn't. His hand found mine again, steady, certain. Across the room, the fairy lights flickered. A camera flashed. The air felt tight, like the moment before a storm breaks. I leaned closer to Evan and whispered, "It's starting." He looked at me, not surprised, just ready. And in that silence, I realized something simple. They didn't come to celebrate me. They came to test how much of me was still theirs. We smiled through the toasts. We cut the cake. We danced. And when the last guest disappeared toward the parking lot, Evan pulled out his phone and showed me something that made my blood turn to ice. Danielle had already posted a photo from our garage, posing beside the car. Caption: "Finally got a ride that fits me." She couldn't even wait till morning. That's when I knew it was time to open the envelope. After the cake was cut and the music softened, the room dissolved into laughter and wine-soaked chatter. I smiled through photos. I accepted congratulations that tasted like dust. And I counted the minutes until I could breathe again. When the last guest drifted toward the parking lot, Evan and I slipped out a side door into the quiet hallway. He leaned against the wall, unbuttoning his collar, exhaling like he'd been holding his breath for hours. "Do you want me to say something to them?" "No," I said. My voice didn't shake. "We already did." He frowned, then understood. We'd planned for this months ago, half joking over takeout, planning for a possibility I hoped wouldn't come true. My mother's habit of turning my things into family property wasn't new. It was inherited behavior, control disguised as care. So I decided to stop being inheritable. 2 weeks before the wedding, my coworker, who happened to be a paralegal, helped me draft a notarized declaration. Every gift received in my name was legally protected. It couldn't be transferred, sold, or given away without my written consent. I signed in blue ink. So did Evan. Jessica, the paralegal, stamped it and smiled. "You're not being paranoid," she said. "You're being prepared." Back in the hallway, Evan reached for my hand. "You knew this might happen." "I hoped it wouldn't," I said. But I didn't want to bleed again without a bandage. We stood there listening to muffled laughter from the banquet room. It sounded distant, hollow, like something already ending. I thought about my mother's face, the delight of control disguised as generosity. She trained me to play the role of the gracious daughter, and I'd learned it so well no one saw the quiet calculations behind my smile. Evan's phone buzzed. A text from his cousin. "Your sister-in-law's already posting about the car." He turned the screen toward me. There it was, Danielle in our garage, one hand on the hood, grin polished for the internet. Caption: "Finally got a ride that fits me. Automobile sparkles." I laughed once, dry and low. She couldn't even wait till morning. "So, what do we do now?" Evan asked. I brushed my fingers over the thick envelope in my clutch. "Now," I said, "we let them open their own trap." Evan exhaled slowly, pride threading through his voice. "Then let's go finish the party." We straightened our clothes, fixed our smiles, walked back toward the music. My heart was steady now. The storm had already changed direction. The ballroom still glowed gold, but the air was different, thin, brittle. Conversations faltered when we entered. My mother stood near the cake table, laughing too loudly, a queen restored to her stage. Danielle hovered beside her, pretending to scroll. When she saw us, Mom brightened. "There they are. Everyone's asking where the bride went." I smiled, handling a few final details. She didn't hear the weight in that sentence. Or maybe she did, and thought she could still outplay me. "Good," she said. "We're wrapping up soon. Danielle needs a ride home anyway." Evan stepped forward, voice polite but surgical. "She has one now, doesn't she?" Mom blinked. "What?" "The car," I said. "You said she's taking it." Danielle tensed, eyes darting between us. "Oh, come on, Eva. Don't make this weird. It's just I heard. I finished for her." Dad drifted closer, peacekeeper mode engaged. "Can we not do this here?" I turned to him, calm.
"Here's the thing, Dad.
This is where she did it, publicly." The band hesitated, then kept playing. A few heads turned. The scent of champagne sharpened in the air. Mom's smile stiffened. "Eva, sweetheart, you're overreacting. It was a misunderstanding. We meant." Evan held out the envelope. "You might want to read this before you finish that sentence." Her hand hovered, then took it. She glanced at Danielle, then at me. She unfolded the paper. The rustle was loud enough to cut through the music. And when she read the first line, I watched her perfect composure crack, right down the middle. Danielle leaned in to read over her shoulder. At first, confusion, then recognition, then color draining, inch by inch. Mom tried to laugh. "What is this?" "A notarized declaration," I said evenly. "Executed 2 weeks ago. It states that all wedding gifts titled in my name can't be sold, gifted, or transferred without my written consent. Any attempt triggers a legal review and forfeits future inheritance from Evan's side." The last words dropped like a stone into a still pond. Conversation stopped. Someone whispered, "Oh wow." Danielle let out a short, panicked laugh. You can't be serious. I met her eyes. Completely serious. Dad exhaled through his nose. This is petty, Eva. No, I said softly. Petty is pretending theft is family tradition. Mom's voice hardened. We're family. You don't treat us like criminals. You went into our garage last night, I replied. You took photos of the car and posted them online. Danielle's face froze. That was a joke. Evan's tone stayed calm. Symbolic? Symbolic of what, exactly? Her lips parted, no answer. I turned to Mom. This isn't about the car. It's about the pattern. You call it love when you take what's mine and tell me I'm good for giving it. You're being dramatic, she snapped. Maybe, I said. But this time, the drama has witnesses. A ripple went through the guests, phones half raised, half hidden. Someone's aunt-mouth drama behind her champagne flute. Danielle's voice cracked. You'd really embarrass the family like this? I'm not embarrassing anyone, I said. I'm just ending the script. Evan took my hand, grounding me. His tone stayed level. Mrs. Harper, you should keep that paper. It's legal documentation. Mom looked at him like he'd committed treason. You encouraged this. No, he said. She didn't need encouragement. Just respect. Danielle flushed scarlet. You married up, didn't you? Think you're better than us now. Evan said nothing. I did. Better?
No.
Boundaried? Absolutely. The word hung there, boundaried. Foreign language in that house. Mom tried again, desperate. We raised you to be kind. You raised me to give, I said. You taught her to take. That was the fracture, the sentence that split the air in half. The band stopped. Even the fairy lights seemed to flicker. Danielle stepped closer, trembling. You'll regret this. I smiled faintly. I already did. For 29 years. For the first time, Mom's perfect composure cracked. Her voice wavered. Eva, please. Don't do this in front of everyone. I looked at her, really looked, and saw what I'd refused to see before. She wasn't hurt. She was exposed. Then you shouldn't have done it to me in front of everyone, I said. She opened her mouth again, but no words came. The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Evan leaned toward the band. Play something, he said quietly. The drummer hesitated. The singer looked at me. I nodded. Music rose again, soft, defiant, a heartbeat refusing to stop. Evan pulled me back to the dance floor. The guests parted like we were royalty.
Or a bomb.
In the mirrors along the wall, I caught reflections. Mom, pale and still. Danielle, mascara smudged. Dad, staring at the floor. The envelope sat on the table between empty glasses, stamped and undeniable. Breathe, Evan whispered. I am, I said. And for once, it was true. When the song ended, I turned to my parents, still frozen near the cake. Help isn't theft, I said evenly. And love isn't access. I set my empty champagne flute beside the envelope and walked away with Evan through a sea of quiet stares. Behind us, applause didn't come, only whispers, like wind through a cracked door. Outside, under the string lights, I exhaled everything I'd been holding for years. But my mother wasn't done yet, because the next morning I woke to 17 missed calls and a message that told me this war was far from over. The morning after the wedding, I woke up to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. We'd stayed at a hotel near the venue, too exhausted to drive home, too wired to sleep properly. Evan was still asleep beside me, one arm draped across my waist. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. 17 missed calls. 12 from my mother. 3 from Danielle. 2 from my father, and 1 voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. My stomach tightened. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Evan, and stepped onto the small balcony. The voicemail was from my aunt, my mother's older sister, Carol. Her voice was tight, clipped, uncomfortable. "Eva, it's Aunt Carol. Your mother called me this morning, very upset. She's saying you humiliated her at your wedding, that you accused her of stealing. I don't know what happened, but maybe you should call her. Try to smooth things over. You know how she gets." I deleted it. Then I scrolled through the texts. "Mom, we need to talk. This is out of control. Mom, you made a scene in front of everyone. Do you know how that made us look? Mom, call me
Now.
Danielle. You're really going to ruin this family over a car? Grow up. Danielle, everyone's talking about what you did. Hope you're happy. Dad, your mother is devastated. Please call her." I stared at the messages, feeling something cold and final settle in my chest. Not one of them asked if I was okay. Not one acknowledged what they'd done. It was all about how I'd made them feel, how I'd made them look. The same pattern, the same script. Evan appeared in the doorway, hair messy, eyes soft with sleep. "You okay?" I handed him the phone. He scrolled, his jaw tightening with each message. "They're trying to flip it," he said quietly. "Make you the villain." "I know. What do you want to do?" I looked out at the city below, cars moving, people walking, life continuing like nothing had shifted. But everything had shifted. "I want to finish this," I said. We drove home that afternoon. The same car my mother tried to take. The same car Danielle posed with like it was already hers. It felt different now. Not like a gift. Like proof. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw it immediately. A car parked out front. My mother's car. "She's here," Evan said, voice flat. "Of course she is," I replied. We sat there for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled. "You don't have to do this today," Evan said. "We can leave. Go somewhere else."
No.
"If I run now, she'll never stop." He reached over, squeezed my hand. "Then I'm right beside you." We walked up to the front door together. Mom sat on the porch steps, arms crossed, face red and puffy from crying. Danielle leaned against the railing, phone in hand, pretending not to care, but clearly there for backup. When Mom saw me, she stood quickly. "Eva," she said, voice breaking. "We need to talk." "No," I said calmly. "We don't." Her face twisted. "You humiliated me. In front of everyone. After everything I've done for you." "What have you done for me?" I interrupted. She blinked.
Stunned.
"Tell me, Mom. What have you actually done for me that wasn't about control?" "I raised you," she snapped. "I sacrificed." "You raised me to give," I said. "You taught her to take. And when I finally said no, you tried to punish me for it." Danielle stepped forward. "This is insane. It's just a car, Eva." I turned to her slowly. "Then why did you post about it before you even had it?" She froze. "Why did you go into my garage? Why did you smile at my wedding while Mom announced she was taking something that didn't belong to either of you?" Her mouth opened.
Closed.
No answer. I looked back at my mother. "You didn't come to celebrate me. You came to test me, to see if I'd still play the role. And when I didn't, you tried to make me the villain." Mom's voice cracked. "I'm your mother." "Then act like it," I said. The words hit like a slap. She stepped back, shaking her head. "You've changed. He changed you." "No," I said quietly. "He just made me realize I was allowed to stop shrinking." Evan stood beside me, silent, immovable. Mom looked between us, desperate. "So that's it? You're just going to cut us off?" "I'm setting boundaries," I said. If you can't respect them, then yes. Danielle scoffed. You're going to regret this. I smiled, small, sad, certain. I already did. For 29 years. My mother stared for a long moment. Then she turned, got into her car, and drove away without another word. Danielle followed. As I watched them disappear down the street, I realized something that should have terrified me but didn't. I felt free. For 3 days, my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no sudden visits. It felt strange, like waiting for a storm that never came. Evan and I spent those days unpacking wedding gifts, sorting through cards, trying to ease back into normal life. But I knew my mother. Silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. On the 4th day, my phone rang. Not my mother. My father. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Eva, he said. His voice sounded tired. Older. We need to talk. As a family. Dad, I already said everything I needed to say. Your mother is devastated, he continued, like I hadn't spoken. She hasn't eaten in days. She's calling relatives, trying to explain what happened. This is tearing the family apart. I closed my eyes.
She's the one who did this, Dad.
Not me. You embarrassed her in front of everyone, he said, voice rising. You made her look like a thief. She tried to steal from me, I said flatly. What would you call it? Silence. It's a car, Eva. Just a car. There it was again. That phrase.
Minimizing.
Dismissing. If it's just a car, I said slowly, then why did she feel entitled to take it? He didn't answer. Dad, I've spent my entire life giving. And every time I gave, you told me it made me good. A good daughter. A good sister. It did, he said quietly. No, I replied. It made me convenient. Another silence. Longer this time. Your mother wants to meet, he said finally. Somewhere neutral.
Just to talk.
I don't trust her. She's your mother, Eva. Then she should act like it. A heavy sigh. Please, he said. Just one conversation. If it doesn't go well, we'll leave it alone. I looked at Evan listening from the couch. He raised an eyebrow. Your call. Part of me wanted to hang up and be done. But another part, the little girl still waiting to be chosen, wanted closure.
Fine, I said.
One conversation. Public place. Evan comes with me. Deal, Dad said, relief flooding his voice. 2 days later, we met at a cafe downtown. Neutral ground. Lots of witnesses. My mother was already there, sitting at a corner table, hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was anchoring her. She looked smaller. Tired. Her makeup lighter than usual, hair pulled back simply. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the smile she wore when she tried to take the car. Dad stood when he saw us. Thank you for coming. I nodded but didn't sit yet. Mom looked up, eyes red-rimmed. Eva, she said softly. Please.
Sit.
I sat. Evan beside me. A united front. For a moment no one spoke. Then Mom took a breath. I didn't come here to fight.
Good, I said.
I came to apologize. I blinked. That I wasn't expecting. She looked down at her hands. I didn't realize how much I'd hurt you. I thought I was helping. I thought that's what mothers do. They make sure everyone's taken care of. Even at my expense? I asked quietly. She flinched. I didn't see it that way. That's the problem, Mom. You never did. Danielle wasn't there. I noticed immediately. Where's Danielle? She didn't want to come, Mom said. Of course not, I said. Because she got what she wanted. Again. Mom's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? I leaned forward. Tell me, Mom, when was the last time Danielle had to work for something? When was the last time she didn't get her way? Silence. She's younger, Mom said weakly. She's had a harder time. She's 27, I interrupted. And she's had an easier life than anyone I know. Because you gave her mine. The words landed hard. Dad shifted, uncomfortable. Eva, that's not. It is, Dad. You know it is. He looked away. Mom's voice trembled. I never meant to make you feel less important. But you did, I said. Every time you put her first. Every time you took something from me and called it love. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I watched her, searching for something real beneath the performance. Are you sorry you hurt me? I asked. Or are you sorry I finally said no? She looked up, wide-eyed. That's not fair, Eva. Answer the question. She opened her mouth, closed it. I don't know, she whispered. And there it was. The truth.
Raw.
Ugly.
Honest.
She didn't know if she was sorry she hurt me or just sorry she got caught. I stood slowly. Then we're done here. Eva, please, no, Mom. I gave you a chance, and you still can't see it. Evan stood with me. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled back. I love you, she said desperately. I know, I replied. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. I walked out of that cafe knowing I'd never have the mother I wanted. But for the first time in my life, I was okay with that. Because I finally had something better. Myself. A week later, I stood in our kitchen with sunlight spilling across the floor. The same house. The same car in the driveway. But everything inside me felt rewired. On the fridge, one photo remained. The moment at the wedding when Mom's smile cracked and I held the envelope. I used to think it looked harsh. Now it looked honest. Evan walked in, coffee in hand, and wrapped his arms around me from behind. Still thinking about it, he asked softly. Not thinking, I said. Just noticing. Noticing what? How quiet it is. Good quiet or bad quiet? Good, I said. And I meant it. My phone hadn't rung in days. No texts. No voicemails. No sudden visits. At first, the silence felt heavy, like something waiting to break. But slowly it became something else. Relief. Freedom. Space to breathe without bracing for the next demand. That week, I realized something I'd been too afraid to admit for 29 years. I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of them. The version I'd built in my head. The family I kept hoping they'd become. But the real them, the ones who took and called it love, I didn't miss that at all. Evan and I went on our honeymoon drive the following weekend. We took the car, windows down, music loud, no destination in mind. Somewhere along a coastal highway, I rolled the window all the way down and let the wind pull at my hair. Evan glanced over, grinning. You look free. I feel free, I said. And I did. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. I wasn't fixing. I wasn't explaining. I wasn't apologizing for taking up space. I was just being. We stopped at a small diner overlooking the ocean, sat in a booth by the window, ordered too much food and laughed about nothing important. At one point, Evan reached across the table and took my hand. I'm proud of you, he said. I'm proud of me too. It was the first time I'd ever said that out loud. When we got home, there was a letter in the mailbox. My mother's handwriting. I stared at it for a long moment, the envelope heavy in my hand. Evan stood beside me. You don't have to open it. I know, but I did anyway. Inside, 3 pages. Handwritten. Careful. She apologized again. Said she'd been thinking. Said she understood now, or was trying to. She wrote about her own mother. How she'd been raised to prioritize others. How she'd passed that down without realizing it was a wound, not a virtue. She didn't ask me to come back.
Didn't demand anything.
Just wrote, "I hope one day you'll forgive me. But I understand if you don't." I folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. Not ready to forgive. Not ready to forget. But maybe one day, ready to let it go. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, washing my face, and caught my own eyes in the reflection. I looked different. Not physically, but something in the way I held myself. I wasn't shrinking anymore. I wasn't performing. I was just here. Evan appeared in the doorway. "You okay?" "Yeah," I smiled. "I really am." He walked over, rested his chin on my shoulder, and we stood there together. Two people who chose each other, not out of obligation, but out of love. Real love. The kind that doesn't take. A month later, I got a text from Danielle. Just one line. "I'm sorry."
I stared at it for a long time.
Then I typed back, "I hope you mean that." She didn't reply. And that was okay. Because I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I wasn't waiting for any of them. People say families fall apart because of pride. Or money. Or secrets. Maybe. But sometimes they fall apart because one person finally stops pretending. And sometimes that's the healthiest thing that can happen. I used to think setting boundaries would destroy my family. But boundaries don't destroy families. They define them. They separate love from control, care from obligation, connection from manipulation. And once you see the difference, you can't unsee it. I looked at that wedding photo one last time, the moment everything changed. And I whispered to myself, "You did it. You finally chose you." Freedom didn't roar. It whispered. It was the sound of a phone that didn't ring anymore. Of doors I could lock without guilt. Of mornings I woke without dread. It was the quiet knowledge that I didn't owe anyone my peace. Not even family. Especially not family. If you've ever had to draw a line with someone who called it love, if you've ever had to choose yourself over keeping the peace, I want you to know something. You're not selfish. You're not cruel. You're not the villain. You're just finally free. And that freedom? It's worth protecting. Breaking generational patterns isn't easy. Going no contact with toxic parents feels impossible at first. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop participating in your own suffering. Share your story below if you've been there. You're not alone. And you don't owe anyone your peace.